Today, I'd firstly like to welcome you all to the 5th stage of the 10 stages of the soul. And we are now reaching halfway in the journey. And therefore, it's a really good time for us to pause, reflect, look back at everything we've learned, and then explore the journey ahead, which I assure you is very different to what you've learned in stages 1 and 2, which is largely the material marketplace, and then 3 and at 4 we go through a dramatic turn. So just to recap, let's start by a quick recap of the 10 stages. I'm not going to go through them all again because we have now got 5 videos published and there's lots of information on them, so please go visit them. But just to refresh your memories, the first stage is the marketplace. The second is the dripping tap. The third, the grandfather clock. The fourth, the children in the playground. Now these 4 we have engaged with in a lot of detail. Today we are at stage 5, which is the waterfall. And as we project forward, we have the monks in the temple, which is next stage, which is also absolutely fascinating because we take a much deeper spiritual turn with the monks in the temple. And then we reach the stage of paradise at the 7th, which is the beach with the palm trees, the breeze, that absolute feeling of elation and happiness and peace. It's so great that most don't want to go forward. You feel tired and you want to stop there. But there's few that venture beyond, and they get to the 8th stage, which is the stage of the orchestra. And this is the stage of zero conflict, a very difficult stage, a stage where a lot of souls get stuck. But with the grace that they are blessed with their efforts, with their consciousness, with that grace, they move forward. Once you cross 8, the journey becomes smooth again. You get to 9th stage, which is the sounds of the deep ocean, where you've reached totality. You started as a droplet in stage 2. You became a river in stage 4. You became a waterfall in stage 5. You reached paradise where you were right in front of the ocean, and then you merged into the ocean. You go through that very, very challenging phase, but highly rewarding phase. So that's where you get to the 9th stage, the sounds of the deep ocean. And then the 10th stage is where you are in the deep ocean, the orchestra is still playing, but you hear the sound of dolphins. And the dolphins are the monks of totality of the ocean. And ocean signifies infinity, totality, completion. Just like every river completes its journey in the ocean. And then beyond that, there is 66 steps where we climb, and there's a door behind which there's a light. This light doesn't enter the staircase. And when we step in is when we have achieved our greatest goal. And that point, crossing that door of light, is purely understood by experience. Nobody can tell us too much about it, but definitely in this series, my goal is to try and help you share these metaphorical symbols, share some critical ways of thinking, tools, and mindsets that carry you forward and help you find more and more and more peace and light. And it's my prayer that all of us here may be blessed with that opportunity to reach that 10th stage and to cross that door of light. And with all the knowledge we are gaining, all these things are just going to help us step by step. And so that's the end of the journey. And that's where we become one, and The sun and its ray have reached the same brightness, and you cannot tell them apart. Now, before we start on stage 5, let us quickly recap stage 4 because the two are connected. And stage 4 is that of the children in the playground. Now, the playground is a place of complete freedom, where children can run around, tear about happily. It's pure freedom. That's the playground. And that for the soul, it's also gone to a new stage of freedom. The presence of children in the playground indicates a new birth or a new chapter. Based on a new karma of enlightenment, it's a new chapter in the journey of the soul. So the third is that children are innocent. So it is a stage of pure innocence. And then in stage 4, the droplet that we saw at stage 2 is now ready to flow towards enlightenment. It is now ready to grow into a river. So in stage 4, a river is born. It is a new beginning. And stage 4 is a very, very powerful level for the soul to experience and grow in. Because it is about living a wholesome life, materially and spiritually. People who are at stage 4 generally live well-balanced lives because those are the type of events that they attract to themselves. Now, in our webinar on stage 4, we explored the concept of wholesome living and how one can go about achieving wholesome living. And I would highly recommend that those of you who haven't watched that video of stage 4, please do so. Actually, watch stages 1 to 4 because you're going to derive a much deeper understanding of the things we're going to talk about going from stage 5 and higher. I'd like you to take a moment. Just close your eyes and imagine this scene. We're going to walk the journey that has come from stages 1 and above. So you are at the second stage and you see a tap dripping water into a bucket, one droplet at a time, one droplet at a time. And you take a close look at this crystal clear droplet of water. See that droplet. That is you. That is you at the beginning of your journey as a droplet. Droplet being essence of life. And then you reach the third stage. The third stage is the level of the unseen. How can you see the unseen at the third stage? You are the droplet. So you place your eyes inside of the droplet in the third stage. You are shown how to do it. You achieve that capacity. So now instead of looking at the droplet, you are looking from within the droplet. Because your vision has changed its vantage point. You are no longer looking at anything. You are looking from within everything. And this is how you gain the ability to see the unseen, because your eyes are now within the droplet, looking outwards. As long as you're looking at the droplet, everything around you is unseen, except the droplet, or whatever is in your immediate sphere of sight. But once your eyes are in that droplet, you see everything, all the universes. And remember that you are able to see through water because it is completely clear. At stage 3, you have gained true clarity. Then you, the droplet of water, transformed into a new reality in stage 4. A new reality based on innocence, purity, freedom, happiness, truth. You have gained a much broader perception of the material world, as depicted by the vastness of the playground. Your life is filled with new companionships, including companionship with your Creator. Now you, the droplet in stage 4, have become a little river. A new river is born here. And now you are at stage 5, where this river has grown and reached the waterfall, and just visualize this beautiful, crystal clear waterfall coming down with tremendous energy, tremendous purity, tremendous power. That is stage 5. You, the droplet, are now the waterfall in absolute abundance of the essence of life. Now you can open your eyes. This places us at stage 5. So let us start today by following the journey of the river. Before it reaches the waterfall, how does it get to the waterfall? At stage 4, you became the river. How did you get to the waterfall? So stage 5 is about how the soul reaches and becomes the waterfall, becomes the essence of life, the abundance of the essence of life. And just as you visualized, the soul has grown a great deal from being the droplet to becoming the little river. Then it grows to become an even bigger river, gaining so much power along its way. A power that is necessary for it to become the waterfall. So let us focus on this power today. Where does it come from? How does this power grow? When the new river is born at the end of stage 4, its flow is only just beginning. A new river is a baby river, innocent, pure, free, happy, and true. These are characteristics we have all seen in babies. So the new river is a baby actually in that essence. A baby has the great asset of time in our material world, time for its journey ahead. He or she is the most wealthy of beings because he or she has time. They are rich in time. What does the soul have as the baby river at stage 5? It has a new karma of enlightenment, a karma that will bring completely new events to its journey, events that will help it gain more and more light at each stage. So my dear friends, we spoke extensively about the karma of enlightenment with our friendly angels Cyrus and Luminous in stage 4. As you all know, Cyrus is the angel of wisdom, Luminous is the angel of light, and they shared some great wisdom with us. So do visit the recording of stage 4. Now Cyrus and Luminous have joined us today to enlighten us about the new baby river and its journey. So Cyrus says, let us start by looking at the material world symbolism of a baby river and its journey. What are they? A baby river begins to flow, and its flow represents its true power. A baby river grows in volume along its journey. To do this, it has to gain more new water. That's how it grows in size. Where does this new water of growth come from? There are 3 key ways. The first one, for this river, it comes from new rainfall. So it is blessed with new water in the form of rainfall. Secondly, its new water comes from within its core, from an unseen source, from under the ground. So new water enters this river in the form of rain or in the form of underground water. And that makes it grow. Now you can see the rainfall, but you cannot see the emergence of new groundwater in a river. Let us call both the seen rainwater and the unseen groundwater the new essence. Okay, it's the new essence. The river has gained that new essence. Thirdly, new water comes to the river as it meets and merges with other streams and rivers. Let us call this the essence of union. So the baby river grows through new essence and essence of union along its journey. As more rivers come, as more streams come, as more rain comes, as more underground water comes, this river is no longer tiny, it becomes a big and powerful river. A river's journey through different types of terrain, from mountains, rocks, valleys, basins, and more, it goes through a journey that is not easy. So even while it's growing, it's going through a difficult journey. But there's one thing that keeps driving it, which is its power of flow. In the material world, you may call this power of flow the force of gravity. And this gravity too is of the unseen. But Cyrus says that in the spiritual world, it's a different power. And fourth is that a river has one final destination, which is the ocean infinite. No matter where its journey begins, it always seeks to end up in the ocean infinite. That's same as the soul. And finally, a river goes through stages where its flow gets reduced. It goes through stages where its water gets lost in terrains of drought, for example. But it never dies. Remember, it will never die. And why will it never die? Because at its core, it is the droplet that can evaporate, join the clouds, and come back again to become a river. The droplet can also seep into the ground and come back as groundwater from the unseen. It is eternal. So this phase of a river's journey can be referred to as its contrary or adverse phase. But this phase, difficult as it may seem, is not always to be viewed as a bad thing or a punishment or anything like that. It is a reality. Because sometimes, in its adverse phase, it can also become the cloud and land directly in the ocean, its final destination. Or it can flow into the groundwater and emerge from below directly into the ocean, its final destination. So that phase of adversity didn't always bring bad things to it. It also brings good things. So I must reiterate that the contrary or adverse phase is not always bad. But it's certainly a phase that needs to be approached with great courage, wisdom, and commitment. So I said to Cyrus, you basically have shown us 5 key symbols or elements of a river's journey. That's right, he replied. What are they? Its power of flow, its growth in volume through new essence and essence of union. Thirdly, its actual journey through the most diverse of terrains that are constantly changing. But it keeps flowing through because it has the power of flow. And that comes from an unseen source. You call it gravity. Fourthly, it has a final goal or abode or destination, which is the ocean infinite. And fifth, it is exposed to the contrary or adverse phases too, which is also an integral part of its journey that demands courage, commitment, and wisdom. So these are the 5 symbols, and the river always overcomes the adverse phase because it is a droplet. At the core, it is the droplet. It is eternal. Wow, I said to Cyrus, there is so much depth and wisdom on how you've articulated to us the 5 key elements of the journey of a baby river. So I asked Luminous, I said, how does the river become the waterfall along its journey? Because remember, we're talking of the baby river, the soul is in parallel. We're reaching the waterfall, the soul is in parallel. So how does the river become the waterfall? Let's understand that part. Because we are at the 5th stage, so let's talk about it. And Luminous replied, good question. He says, our dear Cyrus has shown us the 5 key elements of the journey of a baby river to its final abode, the ocean infinite. In essence, what he has shared with us is the journey of the soul as a river from stages 5 all the way to stage 10, and the final stage that leads to the door of light and beyond. So I said, would I be right in guessing that the contrary or adverse stage is stage 8, the stage of the orchestra? And Luminous laughed. I said, yeah, it's a stage of complete harmony, zero conflict, so difficult to achieve. And Luminous smiled and said, you're getting ahead of yourself. The answer is yes and no. He said, it is no secret that the 8th stage is where souls have to strive the hardest to get past. It is the stage where the river begins to merge into the ocean, and that is a very difficult phase. True. So there is adversity there. But the adverse phase can also be encountered in stages 5, 6, and 7. And Cyrus interjected and said, yes, and I'm bringing it to your attention now to make you aware that just because the soul starts with its new chapter, with a clean state, with a new karma of enlightenment in stage 4, you must realize that it has a challenging but rewarding journey ahead through stages 5 to 10. So, difficult as it may be, it's highly rewarding. And you can start to think of the river. You can start to think of your journey in this material plane as your soul rises. Events will come, challenges will come, but they will shape you and take you higher and higher. So the phase of adversity, or the contrary phase, is actually a gift. It doesn't last forever. So Lumina said, let us come to your question of the waterfall. How does the river become a waterfall in stage 5? Let us look at the journey of the river till it becomes a waterfall. Let us look at the first element of its journey that Cyrus mentioned, its power of flow. What drives its power of flow? Let us look at this question now from the context of the soul. You've understood the river, you've understood the material side of this symbol. Let's look at it from the context of the soul. At stage 3, the grandfather clock, stage 3 of the grandfather clock, the soul commits to a new journey of enlightenment. All its previous karma is extinguished, and it starts the next chapter with the karma of enlightenment. This karma is one of the motive forces that helps the soul journey forward. It is one of the key drivers of flow. You can think of it as the unseen gravity that enables a river to flow in the material world. Remember, gravity takes the river from high altitudes to lower altitudes. All rivers go from high altitudes to lower, and that's how they flow until it reaches the ocean. Where else in your life, all of you, have you encountered the journey from high altitudes to low altitudes, bearing in mind the spiritual dimension? Where have you encountered from high to low? I thought about it and I said, that would be humility, I replied. Exactly, Luminous said. He said, your material world fuels your ego to believe that it is so high up, above everything and everyone else. This is, of course, the negative dimension of the ego, because the ego is a double-edged sword. It has a positive and a negative dimension. Those who overcome the ego and lower themselves below all illusions reach the level of pure truth. I must repeat this because it's very profound. Those who overcome the ego and lower themselves below all illusions, material illusions, they reach the level of pure truth. They are the ones who have been endowed with pure humility. This humility can be gained, it can be earned. We have to work for it. Their life lessons have made them learn, gain, and grow in humility. And humility is that powerful unseen force that you call gravity that makes a river flow in the material world with power. Its power is humility. The power of the soul at the 5th stage is humility. It's a driving force. It's the karma of enlightenment and humility. So the karma of enlightenment brings new events that make the soul grow in humility. Did any one of you ever realize that one of the most important driving forces of your spiritual journey comes from humility? Luminous asked. You all think of humility as an aspect that defines a person or his or her character. Yes, that's very true. But it is a great deal more than that. It is the true power of the soul that drives its flow, that drives its ascension, humility. the true power of the river that makes it reach its abode. When you think of gravity, think of humility. When you think of gravity, think of humility. Humility is the gravity that powers your soul higher up in its journey. It's that important. It's that valuable to work for, to fight for, to experience the ego being deflated, working it downwards, achieving yourself to a level where you lower yourself below all illusions. So when you think of gravity, think of humility. So Luminous said, as you wrote the journey of the 10 stages of the soul, you recognized also that there is no way any soul could ever cross that door of light at the 10th stage without absolute humility. Isn't it so? And he said, I use the word absolute here to show you how fundamentally important humility is. So this is a very important message I wish you all to take away with you today, one of absolute humility. Absolute humility is the driving force that your soul absolutely cherishes to rise beyond the 5th stage and higher, all the way to the completion of its journey. And none can cross that door of light without absolute humility. This is the fact. So Luminous says, what is amusing is that sometimes people with big egos in the material world misconstrue humility as weakness. But he said, if one knew humility the way Cyrus and I do, one would consider such a viewpoint almost laughable. He said, but I did say that the ego is a double-edged sword, 2 sharp edges, a positive one and a negative one. And that is good because the motivation, the positive side of ego is a dimension that motivates flow because it gives you confidence, it gives you strength. That is the healthy side of the ego. If you have no motivation, you will not achieve anything. If you have no motivation, you will not flow. So it is, your ego also helps you, but that's the challenge. Drawing on the good side of it, excelling with it, and bringing down the negative to the lowest level of all illusions. So I asked Luminous, I said, tell us in simple layman's terms, how does one go about achieving absolute humility? I mean, it sounds like a really fantastic accomplishment, but how? So, because Luminous said, what do you mean? I said, the material life is so filled with conflicting aspects, attitudes, perspectives, so it's difficult to reach absolute humility. Luminous laughed. He said, you love asking the hard questions, don't you? He said, in layman's terms, he said, you can build your sense and power of humility by practicing humility and refining your being consciously. Now, what do I mean by that? How do you do that, I asked. He said, firstly, you must want to be humble. Put want in inverted commas. You must want to be humble. You must strive to be humble. So one way is to anchor your thought in humility every day. And you all know about anchor thought. It is where you start your day, you start a situation, you start an event, and you anchor yourself in that one thought. So if I were to ask you, how are you? And you say, I'm fine, that's the most useless thing you could ever say because it's meaningless. But if you are anchored in a thought, you will say, I'm happy, I am inspired, I am humble, I am love, I am abundance. These are anchor thoughts. And so Luminous says, anchor yourself in humility every day, all the time. That's one. Those of you who haven't learned about anchor thought, please visit the YouTube channel. There's a lovely audio and a meditation. It's called The Art of Anchor Thought, or Achieving Anchor Thought. Do listen to it. It's only like a 10-minute clip, but very, very useful. Then secondly, he said, contemplate your true place in life and creation each day. Contemplate your true place in life and creation each day. He said, remind yourself that you are a mere speck of dust in front of the universe. You are a mere speck of dust in front of the universe. He said that is humility. Recognizing that you are no more than a speck of dust before the universe. Look at the speck of dust, he said. Pick it up, look at it. Be humble. And as you become more humble, Luminous said your eyes will shift and you will begin to look from within the speck of dust outwards. Just like in the third stage, your eyes shifted from looking at the water droplet to looking from within the droplet. So he said here, as your humility grows, you will gain the capacity to see from the speck of dust outward. And what do you see if your eyes were in a speck of dust looking outwards? You see the whole universe. So you are the speck of dust, and when blessed with humility, you recognize that you are the universe itself. But without this humility, you can never realize that, because think about it. If you ever did realize that, your ego would be completely out of control. It's too big a realization that you couldn't handle, or it makes you destructive. So you're not given that realization. You're only given that realization when you have acquired the right level of humility. So that's 2. What's the third one? He said, when you look at your fellow beings, for example, remind yourself that inside of them resides the Creator Himself. He said, if you were to come face to face with your Creator, what would that make you feel? Extremely humble. So when you see your fellow beings, regardless of how they look, whether they are able or challenged, beautiful or not beautiful, clean or dirty, remember your origin, your Creator resides in them. Treat them with utmost respect. That is humility. He said that is what the word namaste means. The God in me bows to the God in you, irrespective of what I look like, irrespective of what you look like, irrespective of what I project my place in this material world, irrespective to what you project your place in this material world. The God in me bows to the God in you. That's humility. He said, even the scriptures say, all praise is due to the Creator. What does that mean? The Creator doesn't need you to praise Him, heavens, no. He does not have the human attribute of ego. What all praise is due to the Creator means is that the Creator wants you to recognize His presence in all your fellow beings and in all creation for that matter. Therefore, when you praise your fellow being or creation, you praise your Creator. That is humility, because a lot of people have difficulty praising others. They feel that they become lower when they praise others. People recite this scripture every day of all praise is due to the Creator, but often you don't realize what this praise is due to the Creator means. It means praise your fellow beings. And when you do that, you become humble. Remember I said, go down to the lowest level below all illusions. This is how you do it. Show me one human being that is not happy or touched when praised. So remember, namaste, and the all praise is due to the Creator resides in your fellow creation. You've been placed in the world amidst all of them that have your Creator present so that you gain humility. And remember, humility is the driving force of your soul as it rises. Without it, you do your soul a great injustice. Next, number 4, he said, be mindful of your vocabulary and how you express yourself. If you say or do things that embody even an ounce of arrogance, correct yourself. Let me share a simple example for you to consider. So let's say someone comes to you and asks you for advice, and you are more than happy to help. In your enthusiasm, you say to him or her, I know exactly what you need to do. That sounds like a reasonable statement, doesn't it? No, it isn't. because through your choice of words, you have assumed authority over him or her. When you say, I know exactly what you need to do, you have assumed a position of authority above him or her. Alternatively, if you were to anchor humility completely, and even in your vocabulary, you would say, I believe that I have an idea that is worth your considering. I believe I have an idea that is worth your considering. Same message, but said with greater humility and without any authority. Through these words, you have respected the self-esteem of the person you are addressing. My dear friends, we can only refine our vocabulary by being mindful and reflecting on our words and actions after the fact. This is humility that comes from self-refining. And how our words place us before others requires conscious awareness and introspection. And remember, the power that drives our soul, the baby river that grows into the big river that reaches the waterfall, is humility. You want to gain it in every dimension. Vocabulary is key. Body language is key. Avoid exercising authority. Be level. Then, number 5, he said, there are lots other ways of achieving this humility, more than I have shared. And he said, I want you to take some time. Look at the context of your own life and add more to your list. Think how you can make yourself more and more humble each day, because that's how you will skyrocket spiritually. So Cyrus now steps in and he says, let us come back to the river and waterfall again for a moment. He said, you have all learned a bit more about the power of flow, humility being a big aspect, with of course karma of enlightenment that brings you events that teach you humility. He said, for a river to become a waterfall, it needs to grow in abundance of water. It needs more water. Where does this water come from? He said, I told you earlier about the new essence, like the rain and underground water, and the essence of union that comes from other rivers and streams merging into the river. He said, how does the river gain abundance from this new essence? What is the way in your life you can gain that abundance for your soul? He says it does so. Now we're talking about the new essence, not yet the essence of union. New essence comes from the law of the eternal pool. What is the law of the eternal pool? He says, can you relate that? And I have shared this with you before, and I'll just take a minute and encapsulate it for you. But this is the story of before humanity has become what it is now. It is early beginning time of creation. And there's a little boy called Ibrahim, a little girl called Sarah, and they're walking in the forest with the great teacher. And during the daytime, the great teacher teaches them about the law of the forest. At night, he teaches them about the higher aspects of their spiritual being. And so one day when they're going, they reach a place where there are 7 very tall trees in a circle. The trees, their roots go right to the core of the earth. And the trunks go all the way into the sky. And in the middle of this circle of 7 trees is this beautiful fountain that is flowing from the earth. And Sarah, being thirsty, goes in and tries to drink from it and realizes it is not water. So she is very upset because she is very used to the forest giving her everything. And so what is this pool that is not giving her water, that looks like water, but it's not water? And see, she looks disappointedly at her great teacher, and her great teacher laughs and says, today is a day the 2 of you have to learn a very big lesson. He said, from here on, this forest is going to be filled with people like you. But this pool that you see before you is fundamental in each one of you spiritual beings. He said, look at this pool. What do you see? They say, well, it's coming out from the earth and it's flowing. He said, yes, that pool, that water must always flow. He said, this is the law of the eternal pool. It must always flow. He said, as your world grows, as your events grow, you will receive, this pool will give you resources. It will give you knowledge. It will give you everything you need in all dimensions of your life, abundance, so that you can grow and become richer and greater souls. And he said, this flow of this pool is the key. And he said, the law is that when you receive with one hand, you must always give with the other. It doesn't mean you receive and give away everything. No, but you must give a certain part of what you get in order for this flow of the eternal pool to remain within you. And he said, the day you receive from one hand and you close the other, you will cut yourself from the flow of the pool. So my dear friends, when we give charity, when in religions we give tithe, we give charity, in our daily lives we give in so many different ways, we're not doing anyone any favors. We are remaining connected with the flow of the eternal pool. And if you look in your life and you reach the point where you are not moving forward, you're frustrated, you're spinning wheels, ask yourself, are both my hands open? And if the answer is no, open the other one and come back into the flow. And giving is not just material, it has all dimensions, advice, a smile, helping, all sorts of dimensions of giving. So that is a key part. Make sure that the eternal pool flows with you. And that brings to your river new essence, like the rain and the underground water. It makes your river grow as you give. So not only does it give you abundance in your material life, you gain huge abundance in your spiritual life. And so Cyrus says, let me explain this further. He said, when you receive from one hand, you give to another hand and follow the law of the eternal pool. He said, look at a river. How does a river give? Look at the example. He said it waters and enriches all life that lives along its banks. Wherever there's a river, you will see growth. Green plants, trees, and life all along, because the river nourishes everything it touches. That's how a river gives. Even the creatures that live within it are nourished by the river. He said the river gives unconditionally, and this is why some of the greatest civilizations of this world emerged along the banks of rivers. So he said, you as a soul, as a being, need to learn to give and nourish others and nourish nature unselfishly. Give of yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So I was listening to this going, wow, that's fantastic. And I asked him, I said, how do you give of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? Give us some tips, something we can actually practice. Cyrus replied, the first one of following the law of the eternal pool and giving, he said, is through service to others. When you want your river to grow spiritually, it comes from service to others. He said, as you serve your fellow beings, as you serve nature, as you serve all that comes your way, you gain an immense amount of power that makes your river flow with abundance and purity. So service is a key. It's an anchor. He said this is why so many faiths and cultures in this world teach and promote the concept of service or seva or whatever you call it. The opportunity to serve is a pure gift and blessing for each soul, Cyrus said. And the ability to serve is also a blessing upon each soul. And he or she that takes the opportunity and uses his or her ability to serve to a maximum gains abundance of purity. You're given the opportunity, you use your ability, you put them together, you gain abundance of purity, abundance and purity. He said service can include offering physical help to others. And he said, remember, to serve needs humility. Service can include doing everything you can to keep nature and the environment safe and clean. It can include sharing your resources with those in need. It can also include offering free advice based on your knowledge, skills, and profession. It can include sharing knowledge that you've been blessed with. He said it can include being kind to others and simply lighting up a person's day with a smile. He said service can include protecting the vulnerable and guiding those who are seeking direction. Service can include managing your own emotions in a way that you are never harsh with anyone. So many dimensions to service, so many dimensions to seva. And remember, service makes the river grow. Humility makes it flow. We are getting closer to the waterfall, my dear friends. There was also, when you say, manage your emotions in a manner that you are never harsh with anyone. There's a beautiful story about the life of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, where, peace be upon him, where he used to walk down this road, and it was a narrow like alley, and there was this woman who hated him. And so every day, as soon as he passed another window, she was waiting, and then she would throw her garbage on him. And she would ruin his clothes, and he would look up. And she kept doing this to him every day because she absolutely detested, what he stood for. And this carried on for a long time. But he did not react. Your emotions would immediately want you to fight back, want you to say something, want you to do something in revenge, in exchange. He didn't do anything. Then one day, she didn't throw anything on him. Next day, she still didn't throw any garbage on him. The third day, he goes up to her place and knocks on her door, and it's open, and he goes in. And she looks at him with shock and said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "You haven't thrown garbage on me for 3 days. I've come here to see that you're okay." And she was completely reduced to tears. So you see, he, of course, blessed soul, knew how to manage his emotions in a way that he had every occasion of being harsh. He wasn't harsh. He was kind. He was humble. What sort of being who gets garbage thrown on him every day goes to check that the person who hasn't thrown garbage on him is okay? And that's when the woman's eyes were open. But we draw these examples. Even from all other cultures and faiths, there are similar examples. Draw upon them, because these are powerful ways of making our river grow with new essence and flow with humility. And then Cyrus said there are so many aspects of physical, mental, and emotional service. He said, I'm sure you can build a list of your own. He then continued, there is spiritual service. Let me help you a bit with that, because he said this is also a very profound and important service a soul can offer. Spiritual service can include offering prayers for those that need our prayers. The Creator answers prayers through people. He doesn't just throw things from wherever. He answers prayers through people. And these people are instruments that the Creator uses to answer prayers. He said, these people come to your life and help you in ways that deliver what you prayed for. So I remember when many years ago in London, I'm talking now more than close to 25 years ago, we had a healing event in London. And there was a family that, was a British family who had a daughter who had a rare form of cancer, and very few kids get it, and practically none of them survive. And they went to church, and when they were at church, they were told, about the work we were doing, and they said, maybe we'll come and try and see if our daughter can get any help. And they'd never meditated before. They'd never experienced anything like what we were doing. But the guy walks in with his daughter, and she was, limp, filled with chemicals. And we sat with them, we meditated, and we helped the child. And we saw her many, many times during the course of the year. Her name was Louise. And then after a year, I remember her mother sending a picture at Christmas time saying, "I present to you my daughter," and she had grown her hair again, and she actually kicked the cancer. She used to keep her shoes, her dancing ballet shoes, on a windowsill in her hospital because she said, "I'm going to do ballet and I'm going to dance again." And I said, "You absolutely are. Just stay focused on that." And she did. And then when I was ill, one time in hospital, the phone rings and it's her. And she said, "Today is my 21st birthday." And she said, "I'm calling to tell you that I'm 21, I have a boyfriend, I'm going out to celebrate, and I said, I'm calling to thank you and also praying for you." And here I am sitting, smiling, happy. You see, this is the full circle. We were able to help her. She was blessed, she was healed, she got well. And then when I'm in hospital feeling very ill, who calls me? She calls me. This is how the flow goes. And she made my day, she made my evening, she made my year. So it all goes round. So that's the first example, is that prayer, that meditation. That people are instruments that answer your prayers. We were instruments that answered the parents and the family's prayers. And in the end, when I was not well, she was my instrument. This is how it works. Then he said the second, is taking the time each day. Second form of spiritual service is to take the time each day to meditate with the sole purpose of bringing light and positivity in the lives of all creation. He said it is pure, unselfish prayer. Those of you who give of your time in unselfish prayer to meditate for the betterment of everybody in this world who you may never even meet and never even know, that unselfish prayer is spiritual service as well. He said the world has had and will always have darkness, but souls that give of themselves to spread light and positivity through their power of focused thought, which is meditation, do help create a shift in the balance in this world. They give of themselves in a very pure and fundamental way. That is also an important spiritual service that you can render. And remember, it is service that makes your river grow. Next, he said, getting together as a group of souls to meditate for the betterment of others. So there's individual service, and then you can come together as a group, and pray for, meditate for healing their sicknesses, grief, pains, easing their difficulties, sending light and hope and positive energies to the rest of creation. He said this too is a deep and fundamental form of service. And we all as a group meet once a month for sharing hope sessions. That's exactly what we're doing. We offer spiritual service of this totally unselfish nature. Hence our rivers grow. And we flourish in the spiritual realm. And then finally, Cyrus said there's a very unique angle. And he said that finally another form of service that you don't even know you're rendering is that you as a soul, as you grow in your spiritual journey and come closer to the light, you begin to project energy and peace and happiness that spreads everywhere. He said this too is a service because it is a blessing upon you. By simple virtue of coming closer to the light and rising up the stages, you benefit others through this light. And you gain abundance from it unknowingly or unintentionally, but that is your gift. So those are the forms of spiritual service. So Luminous said that I must add that giving must be selfless. It cannot be a trade with the Creator. He said that is not giving, that is transactional. Cyrus said there was a man in Africa who was a very pious man, prayed regularly, and then in the month of Ramadan he gave lots of charity. And he said, one day I asked him, why do you give all your charity in Ramadan and then the rest of the year you don't do much? And he said, whatever I give in this month gives me the greatest reward. I get tenfold of what I give. God bless him, he said. He did the right thing, but for different reasons. But he didn't even know it because he just meant well. So he too was blessed with his rewards anyways. But for those of us who are now talking stage 5, wanting to become the waterfall, we have to be very mindful of this. We have to make sure that our giving is never transactional. It is always selfless. And as you give, remember, eternal pool flows, your river grows. And Lumina said that souls at the 5th stage must always question their motives behind giving. And it must be an honest and honest self-introspection. And he said this introspection will help you reach selfless service that brings the greatest abundance to your river. So Cyrus had it, he said, as I said to you before, the 5th stage of the soul is underpinned by service of a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual nature. He said this service brings new water to the river, makes it grow. This new water, as you all know it, comes in the form of new essence, which is the essence which comes as rain and underground water, and then there is the essence of union. He said new essence or rain, is now clear. I've explained it to you fully. But he said the essence of union, being the rivers and streams that merge into your river and along its journey, you must think about that further, he said. Think about further how this essence of union works. He said, when you dedicate yourself to service or seva, you will attract others of a like nature. Servants of the Creator, servants of the light, these servants are the new rivers and streams that bring a great deal of abundance to your river by their very presence in your journey. They bring to you the essence of union. This comes from others, but the minute you start to serve, they come. But he said to attract them, you must be one that serves selflessly. So that was a good clarification, I said to Cyrus, because it shows us how true service never stops at one individual. It spreads and spreads fast, rewarding all that comes in its path. Yes, said Cyrus. He said, seva or selfless service is a very powerful source. So Lumina said, okay, it's time for us to wrap up. So let us conclude by summarizing what we have learned today in the next couple of minutes. Number 1, in the 5th stage, you, the river, have become the waterfall. You are in abundance of water. You are in abundance of purity, because when water flows and goes all the way down a waterfall, it becomes purer and purer. He said, through the power of humility, your river has flowed a long ways by the time you got to the 5th stage. Through so many meanders and landscapes, it has fertilized and fed so many different banks before it gained the privilege to become the waterfall. He said the journey of a river is one of service, pure service, remember that. And the river leaves in its wake greenery, happiness, and life. When the Creator loves you, He gives you the opportunity to serve. He leads you towards the waterfall, one more step closer to Him. He said the 6th point is that the river also carries away dirt that people throw in it. This dirt hurts the river, but it keeps cleansing anyway. Look at the river Ganges, how polluted it gets as it cleanses everything along its path. And then downstream, it becomes crystal clear again. In the 5th stage, you are like the Ganges River. You continue to cleanse what comes in your path. You continue to take away dirt and negativity and cleanse it through your flow. If you know of people's secrets or weaknesses, you will never expose them. You will hide them. You will silently cleanse them, for you are the river. And through the grace of the Creator, through your flow, you too will be cleansed, just like the Ganges becomes cleansed again. And then he said, the 9th point is when you reach and become the waterfall, you are pure. Your thoughts are pure. You have managed to detach from all the impurities within yourself. These impurities include negative energies of all kinds, such as destructive or negative thoughts, destructive or negative sexual energies, anger, hatred, greed, gossip, and more. All these impurities that are within you have gone when you become the waterfall. You have become like a clean white cloth without a single stain. You, the waterfall, now have abundance of water, abundance of purity, abundance of life, and abundance of light. Celebrate your good fortune, for when you started as a simple droplet, could you ever have imagined becoming the waterfall? What a blessing, what an accomplishment, he says. Your soul has reached a beautiful state at the 5th stage. But your journey, you have to keep moving ahead, for you are on an exalted path, an exalted journey. Remember, after the waterfall, the river continues, but it is now different, for it has changed from within as it heads towards the 6th stage, the stage of the temple and the monks chanting in it. With that, my dear friends, we thank Cyrus and Luminous for their enlightening thoughts, and we will try to get the video out of this webinar released as soon as we can. And I would like to thank you all for being here today, bringing your light, your positive energy, the clarity of your anchor thoughts to this webinar today. I'd like to thank you deeply, and I pray that you may always be blessed, that the light of the Creator may always be with you and your loved ones and your family to help you, guide you, protect you, and love you always.